Today, we're going to talk about how you break a nation. Specifically, we're diving into the story of Eskom, South Africa's state-owned power company. And trust me, this is about so much more than just electricity. It's a story about the collapse of a national dream and how a world-class institution was brought to its knees, plunging an entire country into darkness.
You see, to really get the scale of this crisis, you first have to understand just how high the hopes were. After apartheid ended, South Africa was just brimming with potential. It felt like a beacon for what a modern, democratic African nation could be. And right at the very heart of that hope was a company that was a source of huge national pride. For decades, Eskom wasn't just some utility company. No, it was a titan of engineering, a symbol of what South Africa was capable of. This was supposed to be the engine that would power the new Rainbow Nation straight into a bright future.
I mean, the sheer scale of what Eskom used to be is just staggering. This was a true global leader. They were building cutting-edge technology that almost nobody could match, producing more power than anyone else on the continent, and, this is so important, they were connecting millions of homes that had been deliberately left in the dark under apartheid. This was progress you could see and feel, a promise being kept, one light switch at a time.
And if you want to talk about a peak, a high point, it has to be the 2010 World Cup. The whole world was watching, and South Africa just shone. The stadiums were lit up, the broadcast signals were perfect, it was a message to everyone, we've arrived. And it was Eskom that kept the lights on for the whole party.
But after the party ended and the years rolled by, a very grim new reality started to creep in.
Just let that number sink in for a second. Over 5,800 hours, where there just wasn't enough electricity to go around. And that was only in the first half of a single year. The system that was once a model of reliability was now just constantly, predictably failing.
And this failure has a name: load shedding. It sounds kind of technical, almost harmless, right? But it's a brutal, daily reality. This isn't a storm knocking out the power. This is a scheduled, rolling shutdown of the country, neighborhood by neighborhood, for hours at a time, every single day, just to stop the whole grid from completely imploding.
And the impact, it's just devastating. For people like Suzuki Musa, who's been running her bar for 25 years, these power cuts are basically an economic death sentence. No power means no refrigerators, no lights, no customers, no business, no income, no way to survive. An entire economy just grinding to a halt.
So, you have to wonder, what happens when somebody actually tries to fix this mess? Well, a man named Andre de Ruyter was brought in as CEO in 2019 to try and clean things up. And the price for his efforts? Someone slipped a near-lethal dose of cyanide into his coffee. At his office. This isn't just a story about mismanagement. This is a story about dangerous, deeply entrenched criminal networks.
Which brings us to the core question, right? How did it get this bad? How does a world-class utility, a source of national pride, become a personal piggy bank for criminals, so broken it can barely function? Well, the answer lies in a series of decisions made more than 20 years ago.
Okay, let's walk through how the stage was set for this disaster. It started back in the early 2000s. You had these legislative shifts that completely changed how Eskom worked. First, a procurement act, which may have been well-intentioned, basically created loopholes that were later exploited. Then, the utility was turned into a corporation, which weakened public oversight. And this next one is crucial. A mandate was created to buy coal on an emergency basis, which meant they could bypass the normal, transparent bidding process. Each step might have seemed small, but together, they created the perfect hunting ground for what came next.
And that created the perfect environment for something called state capture. Now, this isn't just about a little bribery here and there. No, this is when private groups, usually with powerful political friends, systematically worm their way into the state itself. They start controlling policies, appointments, and contracts, all to line their own pockets.
And there's really no more chilling summary than this one, from the man they tried to poison for trying to stop it. Eskom, this massive national asset, became nothing more than a feeding trough.
The scale of this theft is, well, it's almost impossible to get your head around. According to de Ruyter's estimates, we're talking about 1 billion rand. That's about 50 million US dollars being siphoned out of the utility every single month. Money that was supposed to be for maintenance, for new power plants, for quality coal.
So how exactly do you steal that much money? Well, the methods were as brazen as they were creative. You had politically connected families getting coal contracts at wildly inflated prices. Tenders for huge new power stations were rigged, making the costs triple.
People were literally sabotaging equipment just so their buddies could get the juicy repair contracts. The whole system was rotten, right down to the coal itself. Lab officials were paid off to approve shipments of what was basically just rocks and dirt, which then went on to destroy the power plants.
And here's the thing. This kind of looting, it doesn't just break a company. It bleeds out. It triggers a chain reaction that is now threatening to break the entire country.
This is what experts call a death spiral. It works like this. The blackouts hammer the economy, so businesses close and jobs are lost. That shrinks the government's tax revenue. With less money, the state can't fix Eskom or other broken services. As life gets worse, anyone with the skills and money to leave does, and they take their expertise and their tax dollars with them. This weakens the economy even more, which means less money for the state, which means, you guessed it, even more blackouts. It's a vicious, self-feeding cycle of decay.
And what's so critical to understand is that Eskom is not an isolated case. It's a symptom of a much wider collapse. The national airline, once a globe-spanning carrier, a wreck. The freight rail network, once a logistics powerhouse, also a wreck. These were all powerful state institutions, and they've all been ravaged by the same rot.
And, as you'd probably expect, this widespread failure is starting to have huge political consequences. For the first time since apartheid ended, the ruling party, the ANC, Nelson Mandela's party, saw its national support dip below 50%. The people are losing faith.
So after all of that, it brings us to the really tough, unavoidable question. Can this even be fixed? Is the damage that's been done, is it reversible?
But here's a really important perspective to consider. While this crisis feels new and shocking to some, the hard truth is that for the majority of Black South Africans, the state has always failed to provide reliable basic services. The real difference today is that the collapse is now hitting the wealthier, historically privileged communities that used to be protected from it. The failure is now being shared by everyone.
Look, South Africa still has immense potential. It has a robust private sector, incredible resources, and incredibly resilient people. That window of opportunity to turn things around, it hasn't slammed shut just yet. But with every passing day, with every hour the power is out, and with every talented person who packs their bags for good, that path back to prosperity gets a little harder to see.